He found a German Shepherd pup in a whiteout. It grew into something truly terrifying. The storm had been screaming across the valley for hours when Cole Mercer finally opened his front door. A wall of white met him, cold and violent, swallowing the outline of his small cabin at the edge of northern Montana. He had spent enough years in search and rescue to read weather like scripture, and this was the kind of blizzard that buried trucks, homes, and sometimes people. But it wasn't the storm that made him still in the doorway. It was the blood. A thin ribbon of red streaked across the snow, half covered by fresh powder, leading from the tree line toward his porch. It was too small to be from a deer, too erratic to be from a mountain lion kill. Cole felt a familiar knot tighten behind his ribs. His instincts, the ones he had tried to bury since the avalanche 3 years ago, woke up fast. He stepped out, the wind slicing through his jacket like it wasn't even there. The trail ended at a shape no bigger than his forearm, curled against his steps. At first glance it looked like a piece of black fabric. Then it trembled. Cole crouched, his breath fogging the air. The small creature lay half embedded in the drift, its soaked coat so dark it seemed to swallow the limited light. It wasn't moving except for a faint twitch in its flank. "You're kidding me," Cole muttered into the storm. "Who the hell leaves a puppy out here?" He reached forward. The little body jerked weakly, a sound closer to a rasp than a cry escaping its throat. When Cole lifted him, warm blood smeared across his gloves. The pup's eyes were sealed shut. Frost rimed the delicate whiskers, and the heartbeat against Cole's palm was a thin, fluttering thing. Cole knew cold bodies, knew the weight of them. This one was not gone yet. He tucked the pup inside his flannel shirt, close against his own chest heat, then pushed through the blizzard back inside. The door slammed behind him, cutting off the roar. For a moment there was only silence. The kind that used to feel comforting. Lately it only reminded Cole that he lived alone 24 miles from the nearest town, 80 miles from the nearest hospital, and a lifetime away from the man he used to be. He knelt by the wood stove, turning it up, working fast. Towels, a heat pad, warm water, not hot. He had done this 100 times with lost hikers, hypothermic teammates, even a moose calf once. But his hands still shook as he rubbed warmth back into the tiny limbs. The coat beneath the ice was darker than any German Shepherd he'd ever seen. A deep black without any tan markings, thick even at this size, almost glossy when the water melted off. The paws were big, too big. The thought flickered through him, but he pushed it aside. "Stay with me," he whispered, surprised by how hoarse his voice sounded. "I'm not losing another one tonight." The pup whimpered, a thin, weak sound. Cole didn't know if it was a good sign or a dying. "1." He improvised a makeshift formula from powdered milk and warm water, adding sugar for quick energy. Using a dropper, he fed the pup one trembling drop at a time. Most of it dribbled out at first. Then a swallow. Then 2. "Come on, kid. Fight for it." By midnight, the shivers had slowed. By 2 in the morning, the heartbeat against Cole's palm was steady. Cole had spent the whole night on the floor beside the stove, watching the rise and fall of the tiny chest. He didn't dare sleep. Every time the storms outside howled against the walls, he tightened the towel nest around the animal as if the blizzard could reach through the cabin and take it back. Around 3, the pup shifted. His head nudged weakly against Cole's fingers. Cole froze, barely breathing. When the creature's mouth opened in a soft, breathy sigh, something warm cracked open beneath Cole's sternum. Something he had not felt in 3 years. "Hope," he whispered again, softer this time. "You're gonna make it. Yeah, you're gonna pull through." For the first time that night, the storm didn't sound like it was trying to tear the world apart. It sounded far away, muffled behind thick log walls, and the tiny, fragile promise of life in Cole's arms. Cole leaned back against the stove, exhaustion finally hitting him. The pup, settling into sleep, pressed closer to the heat radiating from the man holding him. Cole hadn't saved a life since the avalanche that took his team. He hadn't believed he ever would again. But this storm had delivered him one last chance, and he wasn't letting it die. It wasn't until dawn, when the snowlight finally crept through the window, that Cole noticed something strange. The pup's fur, now almost fully thawed, had an odd sheen to it, the kind of depth that looked more like wild animals he'd tracked than any domesticated shepherd mix. And when the creature finally opened its mouth in a tiny yawn, Cole caught the faint glint of teeth that were longer than they should be. Not impossible, but not normal. Cole blinked the thought away, weary and half-delirious. He told himself it was just the long night, the adrenaline. He'd figure it out later. For now, the only thing that mattered was that the pup was alive. Outside, the wind started picking up again, rattling loose ice along the cabin siding. The blizzard wasn't done. But Cole didn't move from where he sat. The small creature curled against his chest like a heartbeat he'd forgotten he had. This was the first life he had saved since everything fell apart. He had no idea it was also the one that would shatter the solitude he'd spent years protecting, and that the tiny black bundle he rescued from the Whiteout would grow into something no one in the valley was prepared to face. Cole didn't name him right away. Naming things meant keeping them. Keeping things meant losing them. That had been the rule since the avalanche. But 3 days after the storm, when the pup pushed, himself upright for the first time, wobbling on oversized paws and staring at Cole with 2 slivers of amber just beginning to open, the name slipped out before Cole could stop it. Rook, like the black chess piece his father used to place at the edge of the board and call the quiet one, the patient one, the one that protected the king when everything else fell apart. The pup's dark coat absorbed light the same way. Deep, silent, watchful, the name fit too well to take back. Rook recovered at a pace that made even Cole nervous. Most puppies opened their eyes around 12 to 14 days. Rook did it in 6. His legs steadied in another 2. Within a week he was following Cole around the cabin, dragging a blanket twice his size behind him, refusing to be more than a few feet away. Cole tried to rationalize all of it. Some litters develop faster. Some pups are fighters. Some animals survive things that should have killed them. But even so, something about Rook felt tuned differently, as if every cell in his body had been built with hardier material than anything Cole had lifted from the snow before. The first incident happened on a night Cole had barely slept. The nightmares had been circling him for days. The dream was always the same. The cracking echo of the avalanche, the thunder of snow folding in on itself, the suffocating silence after his team vanished beneath it. He always woke gasping, hands clawing at nothing. This time, he woke to pressure on his chest. Rook. Tiny paws planted firmly on his sternum, staring at him with startling focus for something so young. Cole didn't remember the pup climbing onto the bed, didn't remember calling out. But Rook was already there. The tremors in Cole's hands stopped faster than they had in months. After that, Rook made a habit of waking before Cole's nightmares did. Sometimes Cole would open his eyes to find the pup already sitting upright beside the bed, tracking his breathing like a medic listening for a drop in heart rate. It was strange. It was unsettling. But it was helping him. And he hadn't expected help from anything in a long time. By the second week, Rook had doubled in weight. By the third, tripled. Cole kept rereading his notes from the vet in town, trying to convince himself this was still within some range of normal, but the numbers lined up against him. Shepherd mixes didn't grow like this. Their paws didn't look like they belonged to an animal 6 months older. Their teeth didn't form sharp, white hooks before their legs had stopped trembling. That wasn't the only thing. Rook listened, not just to Cole's voice, but to the world outside in a way that made Cole's scalp prickle. The pup would be gnawing on an old bootlace, quiet and content, until his ears flicked toward the window. He'd freeze, posture alert, staring out into the snow as if something had brushed the edge of the forest. Cole heard nothing, but Rook did, and whatever it was pulled every fibre of the animal's attention taut. The twist came on the first clear morning after a week of storms. Cole stepped outside to chop firewood, leaving the door slightly open. Rook was still small enough he couldn't hop over the threshold without effort. Or so Cole thought. He'd barely swung the axe twice when a sound behind him made him turn. Rook was not at the doorway. He was at the tree line. Fast. Too fast. Cole's stomach dropped as he sprinted across the snow, grabbed the pup, and scanned the woods for predators. There were fresh tracks in the powder. Something large, something heavy. Elk, maybe, or something with claws. But the part that hit him hardest was that Rook hadn't bolted out of excitement. He had gone straight to the tracks, nose low, body stiff, tail down. Investigating, assessing, like he'd read danger long before Cole sensed anything. Back inside, Cole locked the door, heart pounding harder than the morning's cold warranted. Rook sat in front of him, head tilted, as if confused why the man hadn't seen what he had. "You're supposed to be a puppy," Cole said, but it came out softer, almost uncertain. Rook nudged his hand in response, not playful, but grounding, as if he understood the tension and was pushing it back down where Cole could carry it. There were more moments like that. Rook positioning himself between Cole and the door when the wind shifted. Rook staring into the forest long after sunset with an intensity that made Cole close the curtains. Rook sleeping near the front window, as if assigned to guard duty. And always watching Cole with an awareness no young animal should have. The twist arrived one night with no warning. Cole was washing dishes when Rook froze in the middle of the room, not looking out the window this time, looking at Cole. The pup's ears flattened. A soft growl vibrated in his throat. Cole turned slowly. The back door was ajar. Snow drifted inward. The latch was broken clean off. Something had tried to get in. Cole grabbed his flashlight and stepped outside, Rook right behind him. There were prints in the snow again, but not elk, not deer, something heavier, wider, purposeful, a mountain lion. It had been circling the cabin. Cole felt the instinctive ice-cold spike of fear. Lions didn't just approach houses unless starving or injured. But the tracks didn't lead towards the cabin. They led away. Sharp, sudden turns in the snow, as if the animal had changed direction fast, as if something had made it retreat. Cole looked down at Rook. The pup's hackles were raised, but not from fear, from something older, something territorial. The thought hit Cole in a quiet, electric way. Had the lion come close, realized something inside the cabin wasn't worth challenging, and turned back? Rook brushed against Cole's leg then, as if assuring him everything was fine. But it wasn't. Something had just shifted between them. A new understanding. A new boundary drawn in the snow. Cole carried. Rook inside, shut every lock, and stood there for a long moment with the pup warm in his arms. He didn't know what Rook would become, didn't know what the strange instincts meant, didn't know why this small, black-coated creature seemed to sense danger before it existed. But one thing was undeniable. For the first time since the avalanche, Cole didn't feel alone in the dark anymore. Rook was becoming something more than a stray he'd rescued. He was becoming a guardian, a presence, a force moving towards something Cole couldn't name yet, but it was coming, and fast. Instincts were awakening on both sides, and neither of them knew how much those instincts would change everything that waited in the wilderness beyond their door. The first real warning arrived on a quiet March morning, the kind that looked harmless from a distance. The snow was thinning, the air brittle but clear, and Cole stepped outside with a mug of black coffee, expecting nothing more dramatic than a brisk walk with Rook before the sun dipped behind the ridge. He didn't even make it to the end of the porch. Rook sat in the yard, tail twitching in sharp, confident movements that didn't match his age. Something dark lay in front of him. At first Cole thought it was a torn glove or a clump of dirt. Then he saw the blood on the snow and the delicate shape of long ears. A rabbit. Neck snapped. Clean kill. Cole froze. Rook was only 7 weeks old. Puppies that age tripped over their own legs. They didn't hunt. They didn't stalk silently through brush and catch healthy animals mid-sprint. Rook looked up at Cole, chest heaving slightly, amber eyes bright with something that wasn't pride so much as instinct. A natural act completed. A reflex aimed at survival. Cole swallowed. Hard. Rook bounded toward him, dropping the rabbit at Cole's boots like an offering. Cole crouched, examining the body. No torn flesh, no evidence of a chaotic struggle. Just precision, calculation, efficiency. You shouldn't be able to do that, he murmured. Rook only nudged his hand, expecting praise. Cole tried to laugh it off. Healthy prey drive, natural behaviors, maybe some breeds matured faster. He tossed the rabbit carcass into a snowbank, promising himself he'd bury it later. But the unease stayed, and it grew. By the end of the week, Rook no longer looked like a puppy. His coat had turned darker than shadow, a black so deep the light didn't bounce off it but disappeared into it. When Cole brushed him, his hands vanished into the undercoat, up to the knuckles. His paws spread wider, larger, almost too large to belong to a body still this young. And his movement. That was what unsettled Cole the most. Rook moved through the cabin like he'd been born in silence. Not a clatter, not a scrape. Even hardwood didn't echo under his weight. Cole once turned around and found Rook at his heel without hearing a single step. Not a sound, not a shift of air. Puppies stumbled. Rook glided. Cole told himself he was imagining things. His mind had built monsters before, especially in the long months after the avalanche. Maybe he was over-analyzing. Maybe he was projecting. Maybe he was trying too hard to see danger where there was none. But then came the plot twist he couldn't ignore. Tom Hardy, his nearest neighbor, stopped by to drop off a repaired chainsaw. Tom was the kind of man who had survived forest fires and backcountry winters with half his gear missing. Nothing rattled him until he saw Rook. Tom crouched, studying the pup with narrowed eyes. Not admiring. Studying? How old did you say he was, Cole? 7 weeks? Tom whistled low. He's growing too fast, too coordinated, too aware. You're sure he's shepherd mix? That's what he looks like. Tom didn't answer. He simply stood, wiping his hands on his jacket, gaze lingering on Rook like he couldn't quite categorize what he was seeing. Rook stared back, his expression direct, steady, almost assessing Tom in return. Cole felt the tension coil between them. Rook stepped closer to Cole's leg, positioning himself half in front of him. Not aggressive. Protective. Tom cleared his throat. Keep an eye on him. Just trust your gut. Big dogs grow fast, but this is something else. Cole laughed it off, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. That afternoon, snow began to fall again. Rook sat by the window, ears swiveling at every sound the wind carried. He wasn't restless, he wasn't bored, he was listening, tracking, predicting, and when night fell, the forest responded. A distant howl rolled across the valley. Not a dog, not coyotes, something deeper, older. It echoed, low and steady, vibrating through the cabin walls. Rook lifted his head. He didn't answer, but he heard it. He recognized it. Cole watched the pup's muscles lock, watched something primal slide just beneath the surface of that black coat. For a moment, Rook seemed caught between two worlds. Then he settled back down, inching closer to Cole's feet, as if to reassure him. The next morning, Cole decided Rook needed a proper checkup. The snow had eased, and the drive to Dr. Eunice Sawyer's clinic wasn't too dangerous. Rook curled in the passenger seat the whole way, larger than the last time they'd done this drive. He no longer fit in a cardboard box. He barely fit across Cole's lap. The bell above the vet clinic rang sharply as Cole stepped in. Dr. Sawyer, a small woman with sharp eyes and a backbone strong enough to wrestle elk, stepped out of the back. "Let's take a look at this little guy," she said cheerfully, pulling on gloves. Cole placed Rook on the table. Sawyer froze. Her cheer evaporated. Her eyes traveled from Rook's paws, up his legs, to his shoulders, then finally to his face. Rook stared back calmly, tail low but not tucked, posture confident but contained. Sawyer reached for her stethoscope, then hesitated again. "Cole, what are you feeding him?" "Normal puppy formula." "Then kibble." She pressed the stethoscope to Rook's chest. The pup didn't flinch. His heartbeat was strong, steady, powerful in a way that startled her. She checked his gums, then his teeth. Her hand paused. "Those are long. Very long for his age." Cole shifted, uncomfortable. He'd noticed that too. Sawyer stepped back, brow tight, arms folded as if collecting thoughts carefully. "He's growing fast," she finally said. "Too fast." Cole waited. She didn't finish the sentence. Didn't offer a theory, just kept staring at Rook with an expression caught between professional curiosity and something colder. Concern. Cole lifted Rook from the table, holding him close. "He's just big for his age," he said. "Shepherd mixes can be, right?" Sawyer didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was quiet. "Cole, I've seen big dogs. I've seen fast growers. But this—" She exhaled sharply. "Just bring him back next week. I want to monitor him closely." Cole nodded, forcing a smile before stepping out into the cold with Rook in his arms. But as he strapped Rook into the passenger seat, one truth gnawed at him with a persistence he couldn't shake. Rook wasn't just growing. He was becoming something. Something the forest recognized. Something the snow didn't hide. Something Dr. Sawyer didn't want to name. And the first signs had already begun. The dreams came back without warning, hitting Cole like a fist the moment he closed his eyes. Not the soft, blurry kind, the brutal ones. The ones he thought he had buried beneath a year of silence in the Montana backcountry. He was back on the mountain, snow cracking like gunfire, his team shouting, the ground shaking under their boots. Then the roar of the avalanche swallowing every sound, the crushing weight, the suffocating dark, the awful stillness afterward. Cole jerked awake with a strangled gasp. This time, he wasn't alone. Rook had his teeth locked onto the front of Cole's shirt, tugging with surprising force, pulling him sideways as if dragging him out of the collapse all over again. His eyes were wide, ears pinned. Fear wasn't what Cole saw in them. Determination. Rook released him only when Cole's breathing slowed. Then he rested his head on Cole's chest as if listening for any last signs of panic. Cole placed his hand on the pup's back, feeling the steady rise and fall beneath the thick black coat. "You knew," he whispered. "You pulled me out." Rook blinked once, slow and sure. He understood more than he should. More than any animal his age had the right to. By afternoon, Cole decided he couldn't keep pretending Rook's instincts were coincidence. He needed air, he needed movement, he needed answers. So he grabbed his coat, whistled softly, and headed into the woods with Rook at his heel. They made it half a mile into the timber before Rook stopped dead. Cole had seen him alert before, but never like this. Rook's entire body tightened, nose lifted, tail low but stiff. He moved ahead slowly, purposeful, like he had caught a trail only he could read. Cole followed, heart thudding. Rook led him to a clearing dusted in fresh snow. That was when Cole saw it. A track. Huge. Wider than his hand, claws long enough to carve the snow in clean arcs. Not bear, not mountain lion. He traced the outline with his glove, swallowing the cold knot that formed in his throat. Whatever made that print was heavy, confident, and close. Rook circled the track once, measuring it with the precision of a seasoned tracker, not a pup. He growled low in his chest, not aggressive, but warning. Cole looked around the clearing, scanning tree trunks and shadows. Nothing moved, nothing breathed except them. He crouched, examining the edges of the print. Sharp, fresh, made within the hour. That was when a voice cut through the quiet. "You shouldn't be out here alone on a day like this." Cole turned sharply, hand instinctively rising toward the knife at his belt. A man emerged from behind a stand of aspens, bundled in a thick canvas coat, limp noticeable in his left leg. Wes Hardy. The new neighbor who'd bought the abandoned sawmill property 2 miles south. Rumor was he was a former Army Ranger, discharged after an IED shattered his knee. Cole had only exchanged a few words with him before, enough to recognize the hard-set jaw and eyes that scanned everything with military precision. Wes stopped a few feet away, gaze landing first on the track, then on Rook. "So it found you too?" Cole frowned. "What do you mean, it found me?" Wes pointed at the print with his chin. "Saw a set just like that behind my property yesterday, bigger than any lion prints I've seen in these parts. And lions don't wander this deep into the valley unless something pushes them. Something like what Wes studied the forest. Voice dropping lower. Something stronger. Something that's not afraid to walk where predators usually claim the ground." Cole felt the air shift. Rook pressed against his leg, eyes trained on Wes as if weighing his every word. Wes narrowed his gaze at the pup. "He's young, but he knows what he's smelling. Look at him." Cole did. Rook wasn't curious. He wasn't scared. He was reading the woods like a soldier studying battlefield terrain. Wes took a step closer. "You're a SAR guy, right? Mercer used to be. Then trust your instincts. Whatever's out here. It's not normal. Those prints weren't there last winter. And it's circling properties, not hunting food. That's behavior you see from something asserting territory." Cole crossed his arms. "A rogue lion, maybe. Sick or starving." Wes shook his head. "If that was a lion, it'd have left scat or fur. This thing's too clean, too calculated." Cole glanced at Rook again. The pup hadn't moved, muscles coiled tight, nose angled into the wind. His body seemed to vibrate with a sense of recognition. Wes followed his gaze. "How old is he? Almost 2 months." Wes huffed an incredulous breath. Too aware for a pup. Too steady. "What breed did you say he was? German Shepherd mix?" Wes took one long look at the animal, eyes narrowing with suspicion. "If that's a shepherd, I'm a ballerina." Cole bristled. "What are you getting at?" Wes didn't answer. Instead, he crouched near the track again. After a moment, he brushed snow aside to expose a second print. Larger. Deeper. There's more than one. Cole felt his pulse spike. More than one of those out here. A pack. Wes stood, face grim. "A pack doesn't bother me. Hunters bother me. Predators trying to mark the valley as theirs bothers me more." Rook suddenly stepped forward, planting himself between Cole and the clearing, posture rigid. He stared into the forest with an intensity that made the hair on Cole's arms stand. Wes saw it too. "That's not curiosity," he said quietly. "That's knowing." The woods fell silent. No birds, no wind, no movement. Cole felt something watching them, something waiting. Then, without any visible trigger, Rook turned sharply and nudged Cole's leg, pushing him back toward the trail. Not frantic, not fearful, commanding. Wes nodded. "He wants you out of here. Smart animal." Cole hesitated. Rook nudged him again, firmer. Then he growled toward the trees, a sound deeper than anything a young pup should be capable of. It echoed through the clearing like a challenge, or a warning. Cole finally stepped back, letting Rook herd him toward the path home. Wes walked alongside them, scanning every direction until they reached the split in the trail. "Be careful, Mercer. You and that dog. You're part of something now. Something the valley hasn't seen before." Cole didn't answer. He didn't need to. Because for the rest of the walk home, Rook stayed pressed to his side, ears pinned forward, every muscle taut. As if whatever left those prints wasn't just passing through, as if it had been waiting for them. The clinic smelled like antiseptic and cedar shavings, a strange combination that usually eased Cole's nerves. Not today. Rook had outgrown the passenger seat and now rode in the back of the truck, pressed against the window, watching every tree as if expecting one to move. By the time Cole pulled into the gravel lot, Rook was already alert, ears high, posture tight. The waiting area held 2 ranchers and a pair of hunting dogs tied near the hitching post outside. The moment Rook stepped out of the truck, both dogs fell silent. One tucked its tail, the other whimpered. Rook didn't even glance at them. Dr. Eunice Sawyer stepped onto the porch just in time to see the reaction. Her eyes tracked from the trembling dogs to the pup at Cole's side. The concern that crossed her face was subtle, but unmistakable. "Bring him in," she said quietly. Cole followed her inside. Rook trotted next to him, a strange, fluid grace in every step. He was barely 9 weeks old, but already moved like something twice his size. Sawyer closed the exam room door behind them. "Let's take a look." Rook hopped onto the table, without help. Sawyer blinked. "He shouldn't be able to do that yet," she murmured, half to herself. Cole didn't answer. His jaw was tight. Sawyer fitted a headlamp, leaning in to examine Rook's mouth. She gently lifted his lip with a gloved finger. Then she stopped. The room went still. Cole saw her jaw tighten. The pup's canines were long, longer than they should ever be at his age. Too sharp, too developed. Sawyer cleared her throat. "Cole, these teeth aren't right. Not right how they're adult length. And the root structure looks—" She hesitated. "Wild." Cole frowned. "Wild as in—" She didn't finish. Instead, she stepped to the cabinet, retrieved a small kit, and pulled out a sterile swab. "I want to run a DNA panel, full sequencing, and I want to do it today." Cole attempted a laugh to lighten the mood. "Come on, he's just a fast-growing shepherd mix." Sawyer didn't smile. She placed the swab under Rook's tongue, collecting a sample. When she sealed it into a tube, her hands were steady, but her eyes weren't. "Cole, I've worked with shepherds my whole life. I've seen mixes, purebreds, working lines, rescues. But I've never seen a pup grow like this. I want answers before something gets out of hand." Rook tilted his head, watching her with unsettling stillness. Sawyer met Cole's gaze directly. "Please, don't shrug this off." Before Cole could respond, a sudden clash of barking erupted outside. Frenzied, high-pitched, panicked, Rook's ears snapped forward. Cole moved to the window and saw both hunting dogs outside thrashing against their chains, eyes fixed on the clinic door. They weren't barking at Sawyer or Cole. They were barking at Rook. And then it happened. A sound rolled from Rook's chest, low and resonant. Not the squeaky yip of a young dog testing his voice. This sound was dark, deep, vibrating the metal exam table beneath him. The hunting dogs fell silent instantly. One dropped to its belly. The other backed up until its chain pulled tight. Sawyer's eyes widened. God, that wasn't a puppy growl. Cole turned to Rook, stunned. What was that? Rook didn't look aggressive. He didn't bare his teeth. He simply stood there, composed and impossibly calm, as if announcing something fundamental to the world outside. A declaration of presence. Sawyer exhaled shakily. That's dominance behavior, but not from a 9-week-old. That was... She shook her head. I don't know what that was. Cole felt the cold creeping into his spine. A memory returned from the clearing. The prints, the feeling of being watched, Rook's rigid posture, Wes Hardy's warning. Something big was in the valley, something carving territory, something that might be connected to the creature Cole brought in from the snow. He swallowed hard. Maybe the growl was just fear, he said, though the words felt weak. That wasn't fear, Sawyer said quietly. Before Cole could respond, the exam room door opened and a man stepped in. A rancher in mud-stained boots. He froze when he saw Rook, not in awe, in alarm. You need to get that animal out of here. It's scaring the hell out of every dog outside. Sawyer stepped forward. Bill, it's under control. He's just a puppy. Bill scoffed. That ain't no puppy I've ever seen. Cole held back a rising knot of defensiveness. Rook wasn't doing anything wrong. He hadn't moved, hadn't postured, hadn't harmed a soul. But the fear in the rancher's eyes was unmistakable, instinctual. When Bill left, slamming the door behind him, Sawyer lowered her voice. Cole, listen to me carefully. I'm fast-tracking this DNA test. I want results by tomorrow night. In the meantime, if anything else unusual happens, anything at all, you call me. Cole opened his mouth to argue, but the look in her eyes stopped him. This wasn't panic. This was science trying to catch up to something it didn't recognize. He gathered Rook into his arms. The pup rested his head under Cole's chin, calm as snowfall, as if nothing had happened. Sawyer walked them to the door. When Cole stepped outside, the hunting dogs whined and turned their heads away, refusing to meet Rook's eyes. Cole didn't say a word the entire drive home, but the question hollowed him out as the truck moved through falling snow. What if Rook wasn't a shepherd mix at all? What if he wasn't a dog back at the cabin? Cole built a fire, trying to shake off the unease. Rook lay at his feet, paws crossed, watching the flames with eerie focus. Cole touched the pup's head, running his fingers behind the ears, feeling the strength coiled beneath the fur. What are you, kid? Rook blinked up at him, soft for a second. Then his ears twitched. He rose, walked to the window, and stared into the tree line. Something waited out there in the dark. And for the first time, Cole realized Rook wasn't afraid of it. He was connected to it. The truth was coming, whether Cole wanted it or not. The results arrived before dawn, long before Cole expected them. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, slicing through the early dark. He sat up, heart pounding. Rook lifted his head from the foot of the bed, alert before Cole even reached the phone. It was a single message from Dr. Sawyer. Call me. Now. He didn't bother with Boots. He paced the living room as the phone rang, Rook following every step with his amber eyes. Eunice picked up on the first ring. Her voice was stripped of its usual calm. Cole, I got the DNA panel back. He braced himself. Okay, so what is he mixed with husky, some northern line, maybe? No. A beat of silence. Cole, he is Canis lupus occidentalis. The words didn't land at first. The northwestern wolf. 100% match. Cole felt the floor shift under him. You're saying he's pure wolf? Not just pure, she said. His markers match the largest subspecies on the continent. He shouldn't even be this close to human habitation. Cole stared at Rook, who sat tall and composed, as if waiting for judgment. I know this is hard, Eunice continued, but you need to understand what you've been raising. He's not domesticated, not bred, not a hybrid. He is wild in the oldest sense of the word. Cole's pulse hammered, but he imprinted on me. He listens. Wolves can bond, she said gently. But at the end of the day, instinct is instinct. Biology is biology, and the state needs to be informed. No, the word came out before he could think. They'll take him. They'll cage him. They'll do what the law requires. He hung up without goodbye. Across the room, Rook stepped closer, sensing everything. Cole touched the dark fur between his ears. Rook leaned into the contact with a warmth that made the truth harder to breathe around. A wolf, a full-sized northwestern wolf, living in his house, sleeping at his feet, saving him from nightmares, watching over him like something ancient and loyal and entirely impossible. The banging on the door came an hour later. Rook was already there, planted in front of the entryway before Cole even took a step. Not growling, not baring teeth, just standing guard. Through the frosted window, Cole saw 4 trucks, wildlife conservation units, a state ranger, and behind them, a white SUV carrying 2 strangers in thick jackets and conservation badges. Eunice was with them, looking miserable. Cole opened the door only because Rook didn't move. "Morning, Mr. Mercer," the lead ranger said, voice clipped. "We've had reports of an unregistered wolf on your property." Cole held the door, blocking their view. "I'm handling it." The ranger's expression didn't change. "It's not optional. We need to assess the situation." Rook stepped into view. The ranger froze. Everyone did. Even at 6 months old, Rook was enormous. Thick black coat, amber eyes cutting through the cold. He stood perfectly still, evaluating every stranger like he could read the temperature of their fear. One of the conservationists whispered, "That's no pup." The ranger cleared his throat. "We're coming in. Please restrain your animal." "He's not dangerous," Cole said, but his words broke when he saw Eunice's face. She wasn't afraid. She was pleading. "Let us help before someone else decides how this ends." They entered the yard in a slow, tight cluster. Rook stayed at Cole's side, muscles taut but controlled. Tension coiled in the air like a drawn bowstring. The ranger opened a metal case, revealing tranquilizer equipment. Rook's ears flattened for the first time. Cole stepped between them. "You're not shooting him." "It's protocol," the ranger said. "That animal is a threat. He saved my life." More than once. Before the ranger could argue, a sound split the air. Branches snapping, heavy breathing, something massive pushing through the tree line. Wes Hardy burst from the forest, limping fast. "Cole, get back." The trees behind him erupted. A grizzly bear, huge and mottled with old scars, broke through the branches with a roar strong enough to rattle the icy ground. It was sick, frantic, foam dripping from its muzzle, its eyes locked on the group like a single target. The ranger reached for his weapon, but he was too slow. The bear charged. The conservationist scrambled backward, slipping on the frozen dirt. Eunice screamed for them to move. The ranger tried to raise his rifle again, but the angle was wrong. Cole saw it unfolding in a single, terrifying frame. They weren't going to make it. Rook moved before anyone else could breathe. He shot forward in a blur of black fur, so fast Cole could barely track him. He didn't bark, didn't hesitate. He collided with the bear head-on, a force of pure instinct and impossible courage. The impact jolted the earth. The bear reared up, stunned, swiping with one massive paw. Rook dodged under it with a predator's precision, snarling a sound that didn't seem possible from a creature his age. Amber eyes locked onto the threat. Every person in that yard watched a truth unfold they had no place witnessing. A wolf, too large, too powerful, too wild to be real, stood between them and certain death. The bear roared again, staggering forward. Rook held the line. Cole couldn't move. His breath froze in his chest as Rook lunged again, teeth snapping inches from the bear's throat. Not attacking, not committing to a kill, just blocking, intercepting, warning, a perfect defensive strike. The ranger finally raised his tranquilizer rifle and fired. The dart struck the bear's shoulder. The second shot hit deeper. The bear stumbled, collapsing into the snow with a final exhausted groan. Silence fell so heavy it felt physical. Rook stood over the fallen bear, chest heaving, steam rising from his fur in the cold air. Not triumphant, not savage, just protective. The conservationist stared, pale and shaken. The ranger whispered, "Dear God, he saved us." Eunice looked at Cole, eyes wide. "Do you understand what you have here?" Cole nodded, throat tight. "I think I finally do." Rook walked back to Cole slowly, the tension bleeding out of him. He brushed his head against Cole's hip, grounding him, steadying him, claiming him. The ranger lowered his weapon. "We're going to have to rethink the protocol," he said quietly. Everyone had seen it. The creature they feared wasn't a menace. He was their shield, their guardian, their impossible protector. Cole dropped to one knee, hands buried in Rook's thick fur. "Good boy," he whispered, voice breaking. "Good boy." Rook closed his eyes, leaning into the words like they were the only thing that mattered. The truth was terrifying, but the truth had also saved them all. For 3 days after the grizzly incident, Cole's cabin became the most scrutinized square of land in the entire valley. Wildlife officials returned twice. Conservationists came back with notebooks, cameras, and questions they whispered more than asked. Even the sheriff drove up the narrow road, his presence more curious than hostile. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. What are we supposed to do with a wolf that saves people on purpose? Rook stayed close through all of it. Calm, watchful, his black coat absorbing the morning sun like polished obsidian. The valley's fear had shifted into something else now. Respect, yes. Awe, definitely. And a nervous realization that this wolf, this creature, did not follow any rule they understood. By the 4th morning, Ranger Howell, the same man who once tried to tranquilize Rook, returned with a folder tucked under his arm. His jaw was tight with something halfway between resignation and admiration. Cole stepped outside before Howell could knock. Rook stood beside him like a silent sentinel. "We've come to a decision," Howell said, and it wasn't easy. Cole braced himself. Rook will not be seized. The words hit harder than any winter storm Cole had ever fought through. He let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "There's more," Howell added. "Much more." He opened the folder. Under Montana and federal wildlife codes, a pure northwestern wolf cannot be privately owned. But this situation is not one those laws were written for. Cole nodded slowly. No one needed a reminder. Every witness to the bear attack had already rewritten their understanding of what a wolf could be. Howell continued. "We're issuing a special therapeutic companion permit. Temporary at first, renewed with evaluations every 60 days. Cole blinked. Therapeutic companion wolf. It sounded unreal spoken out loud. Eunice Sawyer stepped forward from where she had been waiting beside her truck, her expression gentle but firm. "Cole, you saving that pup wasn't just luck. Something about the bond between you two, it's clinical, it's observable. And after the bear incident, well, there's no denying he's protective of you in a way we've never documented in wolves." Howell nodded. "Our department is classifying this as an exceptional case, a 1 in a million scenario." Rook lifted his head slightly, sensing the shift in tone. His amber eyes met Howell's directly, not as challenge, but as recognition. Howell swallowed and added with a quieter voice, "Frankly, Mercer, he saved my life too. So I fought for this. The ranger handed over the folder. Inside were pages of conditions, 8-foot fencing around the cabin perimeter, no trips to town, no exposure to children, monthly vet check-ins, mandatory training documentation, emergency recall commands, and one line bolded: any aggressive incident toward human or livestock voids this permit effective immediately. Cole closed the folder. Rook pressed his shoulder against his leg, grounding him. I'll meet every condition, Cole said, every single one. Eunice smiled softly. I knew you would. Howell cleared his throat. One more thing. The governor wants this quiet. No media. No public interviews. Cole nearly laughed. Believe me, I want that even more than he does. Howell nodded, satisfied. Then he stepped back, paused, and gave Rook one long, thoughtful look. Take care of each other. After the officials left, the valley seemed to exhale. Birds returned to the trees. The quiet hum of the wind found its rhythm again. Cole looked down at Rook. The wolf leaned his head gently into Cole's hip, a gesture that had become second nature, like two creatures syncing their heartbeat. Come on, Cole said. Let's build that fence. It took 3 weekends, bruised knuckles, and more lumber than Cole wanted to admit. Wes Hardy showed up unannounced with a truck full of supplies and a limp hidden under too much stubborn pride. Heard you're building Fort Knox for the big guy. Wes grunted, dropping a coil of fencing wire into the snow. Not gonna let you do it alone. Rook walked up to Wes, sniffed him once, and sat beside him like they'd known each other for years. Wes froze. He likes me. Cole shrugged. Or he respects your limp, hard to tell. Wes snorted and went back to unloading the truck. By the time spring thawed the valley floor, the 5-acre enclosure stood tall and solid. The law required it, but Rook treated it more like a boundary of courtesy than confinement. He could leap over it effortlessly. Everyone knew that. But he never tried. Inside that fence, Cole's life changed in ways he hadn't anticipated. The nightmares didn't vanish, but they loosened. Instead of waking gasping and shaking, he found Rook's weight pressing against him, anchoring him to the present. When panic attacks threatened, Rook would nudge him, circle him, or rest his head on Cole's chest until his breathing steadied. And when Cole worked in the yard, or repaired gear, or cooked dinner, Rook followed, quiet but constant. Never on edge, never distracted. It was as if watching over Cole was his chosen task. One afternoon, after weeks of relative peace, Eunice returned for a scheduled exam. She crouched beside Rook, listening to his heartbeat with her stethoscope. The wolf lay still, patient, as if he knew this was part of the agreement. You know, Eunice murmured, smoothing the fur behind his ears. Most wolves wouldn't tolerate handling like this, even raised from birth. Cole leaned against the porch railing. He's different. Eunice looked up. He's bonded Cole, completely. Wolves aren't like dogs. Their loyalty is selective, singular, once in a lifetime. Cole looked at Rook, chest tightening with something he didn't have a name for, so he chose me. Eunice nodded. And it's mutual. That night, Cole stood on the porch as the sun dipped behind the pines, turning the sky gold. Rook sat beside him, tall and shadow-like, their silhouettes cast long across the ground. It hit Cole then. The truth he'd been avoiding. He wasn't just healing, he was living again. For the first time since the avalanche took his team, he wasn't counting the days. He wasn't moving through life like a ghost trapped inside his own head. He was here, present, breathing with purpose, because Rook demanded it, because Rook gave it back to him. Cole rested a hand on the wolf's thick fur. I don't know what I did to deserve you, kid. Rook leaned his massive head into Cole's palm, closing his eyes. Somewhere deep in the valley, a wild wolf pack howled. The sound carried across the treetops like a call to ancient memory. Rook opened his eyes but didn't stand. He didn't turn toward the mountains. He stayed sitting beside Cole, choosing him again, choosing this life. And for the first time in years, Cole felt like maybe fate hadn't taken everything from him after all. Maybe, just maybe, it had given him something too. The first snow of the new winter arrived quietly, a soft drift settling over Bitter Creek Valley as if the world were laying down a fresh sheet of paper for Cole Mercer to write his next life on. The year had passed fast and slow at the same time, full of healing and hard lessons, full of choices neither he nor Rook could take back. Cole stood on the porch that morning, coffee steaming in his hands, watching Rook move through the snow with the silent grace of something born to survive mountains. The wolf's black coat stood out against the white like ink on paper. Even now, even after a year of living together, Cole sometimes found himself staring at him the way you stare at something you can't quite believe is real. The wolf paused near the tree line, head lifted, listening. Cole felt the shift before he heard anything, the way the air tightened, the way Rook's ears flicked forward. Then the sound came. A distant howl, long and low, rolling across the valley like wind through a canyon. The wild pack again. Happened twice last month, 3 times the month before. The wolves were testing boundaries, calling out to Rook in the ancient language he was born knowing, inviting him home. Cole's stomach tightened. He never moved, never called out. This was something he had no right to interfere with. Rook listened, head tilted slightly. Snowflakes clung to his muzzle and whiskers. His breath puffed white into the cold air. Another howl answered, closer this time. Rook didn't run, didn't even take a step. He simply looked back at the cabin, at Cole. The choice was made in a heartbeat. Rook padded back through the snow, climbed the 3 steps to the porch, and sat beside Cole with a soft exhale. Cole set the mug down and crouched beside him, resting a hand in the thick fur around Rook's neck. "Thought you might go," he murmured. Rook nudged his shoulder once, firm and certain, then sat facing the mountains like a king surveying land he had no interest in ruling. The howls faded, and the valley was quiet again. People in town liked to whisper about the wolf that chose a man over a pack. Some were afraid. Some were fascinated. Some blamed Cole for taming something not meant to be tamed. Others called Rook a miracle. Cole didn't believe either side. Rook wasn't tamed. He wasn't a miracle. He was a choice. A living, breathing act of will. And Cole had no idea how long he deserved it. By mid-morning, Wes Hardy drove up the dirt road in his old Tacoma, one headlight fogged over from last winter's crash. He got out, dropping a box of firewood on the porch. "Your wolf keeps scaring the hell out of hunters," Wes said by way of greeting. "3 guys on ATV swore they saw a shadow the size of a horse last night." Cole raised an eyebrow. Didn't know Rook had branched into mythological proportions. Wes shrugged. People like their legends. Makes them feel small in a big world. Rook padded out of the cabin, circled once around Wes, then sat down with the quiet authority of something that understood it didn't have to prove itself. Wes let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "You know I've seen some things, Mercer, but nothing like this. A wolf who listens better than my dog, hell, better than most soldiers I served with, makes a man rethink the rules." Cole glanced down at Rook, who tilted his head as if agreeing. Inside the cabin, the wood stove crackled. On the kitchen table lay a leather-bound journal, pages filled with Cole's slanted handwriting. It had started as a therapeutic exercise his counselor recommended years ago. For a long time, the pages stayed empty. Too many things he didn't want to remember. Too much pain he didn't know how to speak out loud. But after Rook, Everything changed. Cole had begun writing again. Stories of rescue missions, lessons learned from the mountains, the nights he should have died but didn't, the moments Rook pulled him back from the edge without ever saying a word. Wes nodded toward the journal. "You still working on that thing?" Cole closed it gently. "Yeah, thinking of sending a chapter or two to the VA. Maybe it helps someone." Wes grunted. "Might help more than you think. A lot of guys can't talk about their ghosts, but they'd listen to a wolf story." Cole smiled at that. Rook walked over and pressed his head under Cole's hand, insisting on attention. Later that afternoon, as the snow deepened and clouds thickened over the valley, Cole went for a walk along the ridge. Rook followed, matching every step with effortless silence. The trail looked the same as last year, but everything inside Cole felt different. The weight on his chest wasn't gone, but it was lighter, manageable. His mind no longer replayed the avalanche every night. His hands no longer trembled when the wind roared through the pines like falling snowpacks. Maybe healing wasn't a finish line. Maybe it was simply walking forward with something, someone who refused to leave your side. Rook paused suddenly, ears pricked. Then he looked at Cole, giving him the faintest woof. "What is it?" Cole asked quietly. Rook moved toward a cluster of trees. Cole followed. In the powdery snow lay a single print. Large, deep, too big for a dog, too round for a cougar, too fresh for the frost to have softened it. Another wolf. A big one. Cole crouched. Not pack. Lone. But that wasn't what made his breath stop. Next to the print, a smaller one. Not from Rook. Different shape, slightly narrower, teenager wolf-sized. "Pups," Cole whispered. Rook lowered his head and sniffed the tracks carefully, tail flicking once. Not agitation. Awareness. Cole straightened. More wolves meant more attention, more risks, more questions about whether Rook's presence in this valley would eventually draw trouble. Rook looked up at him. "No fear. No hesitation." "We'll deal with it," Cole said, "together." They walked home just as the sky cracked open and snow began to fall harder, thick flakes swirling like ash. By evening, Bitter Creek Valley was buried in white. Wind howled. The cabin shook. Cole bolted upright once or twice, old instincts firing, heart thundering like it used to in combat. But every time, Rook was there. Sometimes pressed against him, sometimes lying across the doorway, sometimes watching the window with those strange amber eyes that seemed to read danger long before it reached them. Cole could breathe again. At midnight, a distant chorus of howls rose through the storm. Long, wild, ancient. Rook stood from where he had been curled on the floor. Cole's heart clenched. "Go with them," he whispered. Rook walked to the door, stopped, turned around, and silently padded back to Cole's bed. He lay down with a quiet thump, head resting near Cole's leg. The howls faded. Cole's throat tightened. He leaned down and rested a hand on the wolf's back. Not a pet, not a prisoner, a companion, a choice. Outside, winter pressed in. Inside, the cabin's fire glowed warm, flickering across the wood walls. Cole picked up his journal again, pen scratching across the page. He wrote about the first day he found Rook, the blood trail, the storm, the fear, the fragile heartbeat of the dying puppy. He wrote about survival. He wrote about trust. He wrote about the second chance he didn't believe he would ever deserve. And as the storm raged against the glass, Cole whispered into the quiet room, "Stay as long as you want, Rook." The wolf's tail thumped once, steady and certain. He wasn't going anywhere. By early spring, the valley had thawed into its quiet, rugged beauty again. Snow pulled back from the pines, revealing dark soil and the first shoots of green. Life returned in careful steps, and with it came the one thing Cole Mercer never asked for: attention. It started with a phone call from the regional VA office. A soft-spoken counselor named Rhea Hammond left a message on his landline, her voice warm but hesitant. "We've been hearing about your journaling work, and about the companion wolf." She paused. "Would you be open to meeting a reporter who's doing a feature on alternative therapy models? Strictly veteran-focused, nothing sensational." Cole almost deleted the message. The last thing he wanted was eyes on his life. Eyes on Rook. The valley whispered enough already. Hunters talked. Locals talked. The story of the wolf who saved a ranger had traveled in footprints across snow. But Rhea added one thing at the end of her message that stuck with him. "Some veterans are losing hope, Cole. If your story can help one of them stay another day, it's worth asking." He listened to that line 4 times before calling back. A week later, a dusty Subaru rattled up his road, tires crunching gravel. Rook lifted his head from the porch, ears pricking. Cole stepped outside just as a young woman climbed out of the car, brushing her hair from her face. "Hannah Briggs," she said, extending a hand. She couldn't have been more than 27. Sharp eyes, nervous smile, notebook tucked under one arm. "I appreciate you letting me come up. I know this place is kind of off the grid." Cole shook her hand. Rook studied her from a distance, massive and silent, more shadow than wolf. "If he comes toward you, don't reach for him," Cole warned quietly. "He'll decide the terms." Hannah nodded, though her breath hitched with a flicker of fear. "I reviewed the guidelines you sent. No sudden movements, no petting, no direct eye contact until he approaches first." She said it like she'd rehearsed it in the car for an hour. Cole almost smiled. They settled on the porch, sunlight filtering through the tree line. Rook wandered close, sniffed the air around Hannah, then sat beside Cole with a low huff. "That's a good sign," Cole said. Hannah swallowed. "I'm honored, actually." She opened her notebook but didn't start with questions. Instead, she asked, "What changed for you?" Cole hesitated. Talking about the avalanche still made the back of his throat tighten. Talking about war made his palms cold. But Rhea was right. Maybe this mattered. "I didn't sleep for months," Cole said. "Couldn't. When I did, it was worse than being awake. Then one night, a storm hit, and I found this little thing dying on my porch. Everything in me knew he wasn't going to make it unless I tried. So I tried." He looked at Rook, who sat tall and still, amber eyes reflecting pine shadows. "And saving him saved me back." Hannah wrote slowly, carefully. Her questions were gentle, never prying, never hunting for drama. She asked about the routine, about the bond, about how Rook recognized panic attacks before they happened. Then she asked something no one else had ever dared to. "Do you think he stayed with you out of loyalty, or because he thought you needed him?" Cole exhaled, long and quiet. "Both," he said. "Wolves don't give loyalty easily. But once they choose, it's a lifetime thing." Rook nudged Cole's hand as if agreeing. Hannah smiled at that. For the first time, she looked at Rook without fear. More like she was trying to memorize him. After an hour, she stopped writing. She just sat there, watching the wolf nap at Cole's feet. "You know," she said softly, "when the VA asked me to do this piece, they said it was about alternative therapy, but it's more than that, isn't it?" Cole didn't answer. He didn't need to. Rook lifted his head, eyes warm and ancient, the kind of gaze that made you feel seen all the way to your bones. Hannah closed her notebook. "I won't make this a spectacle, I promise." And Cole believed her. She left before dusk, her Subaru disappearing down the dirt road. For a few days, life fell back into its quiet rhythm. Patrols, training, long walks along the ridge, nights where Rook slept with his head near Cole's bed, grounding him in a way medication never had. Then the article came out. It wasn't flashy. No dramatic headlines, no viral bait. Just a simple title, The Wolf Who Stayed, How One Veteran Found His Way Back by Hannah Briggs. She wrote about trauma, about isolation, about rebuilding piece by piece. She described Rook not as a phenomenon, but as a partner, a lifeline. She didn't mention his size, or the bear, or the DNA, or the permit. She only wrote the truth. Healing is not always found in clinics. Sometimes it walks out of the forest and chooses you. The piece spread quietly through veteran communities across the Northwest. Emails arrived, dozens at first, then hundreds. A Marine from Idaho who hadn't slept through a night in 6 years. A former Air Force medic who couldn't leave her house without trembling. A retired Navy chief who said he read the article 3 times and cried each time. Cole answered every message, slowly but sincerely. He shared pieces of his journal. He shared structure, tips, strategies, reminders that progress wasn't linear, that healing wasn't an order you could follow like a mission. Every night, Rook lay beside him as he typed, the wolf's steady breathing anchoring him to the present. One evening, while Cole responded to a message from a veteran in Wyoming who had considered ending his life the week before, Rook suddenly raised his head. He stared towards the window. A deep, slow growl rumbled in his chest. Not fierce, not threatening. Warning. Cole stood, tension snapping through him like a tripwire. Outside, headlights approached slowly, crawling up the road. Cole's pulse kicked hard. State officials? Conservation officers? Someone who wanted the wolf? Someone who had seen the article and come looking for the wrong reasons? He reached for the door. Easy, Rook, Cole whispered. The wolf stood beside him, tall and silent. The vehicle parked. A single figure stepped out. Hannah. Cole opened the door, exhaling in relief. But Hannah's expression wasn't relaxed. She looked shaken, eyes bright with urgency. Sorry to come unannounced, she said, breathless. But I needed to tell you something in person. Cole stepped aside. Rook didn't move, but he didn't posture either. He simply watched. What happened? Cole asked. Hannah took a steadying breath. One of the veterans who read your story. He reached out to the VA, said the article stopped him from doing something irreversible, said reading about Rook reminded him he wasn't alone. Cole felt the world tilt slightly, as if gravity shifted. He asked to send you a message. Hannah added softly, said he wasn't ready to write it himself, but he wanted you to know something. She unfolded a piece of paper. Her voice wavered. Tell the man with the wolf, he saved 2 lives. Cole swallowed hard, eyes stinging. Rook pressed against his leg, sensing the tidal shift in emotion. Cole rested a trembling hand on his fur. Hannah folded the note. I thought you should know what your story is doing out there. Cole nodded. Thank you. She looked at Rook with something like reverence. That wolf isn't just part of your journey, Cole. He's part of your legacy. After she left, Cole walked out into the cold night, breath fogging the air. Rook standing tall beside him, amber eyes reflecting the stars. Legacy. It wasn't a word Cole had ever imagined tied to himself, but as Rook leaned against him, solid and intentional, Cole understood. Rook had saved him. And somehow, through a story he never wanted told, he was helping save others. A strange, powerful peace settled in Cole's chest. Healing wasn't just something he received now. It was something he passed on. He looked at Rook and whispered into the quiet valley. We're helping people, buddy. Rook's tail thumped once against the porch, a wolf's version of a nod. And under the starlight, with the valley breathing softly around them, Cole realized something he hadn't dared admit until now. Their story wasn't ending. It was beginning. The mountains were awake that morning, breathing thin columns of mist into the cold spring air, as though the whole valley were exhaling after a long winter. The county had spent months restoring the protected forest entrance near Bridger Ridge, and now it was finally opening. A small crowd gathered beneath the timber archway. Volunteers, rangers, local families, veterans who had driven hours just to shake Cole Mercer's hand. Camera crews were there, too. Not the swarm Cole once feared, but a respectful handful cleared by the Wildlife Department and the state VA. They kept their distance, giving space for the one presence that drew every eye. Rook. No longer the trembling creature Cole found dying in a whiteout. Now an enormous male wolf with shoulders nearly to Cole's hip, fur black as midnight, and eyes that caught the light like amber fire. He stood calmly at Cole's side, every breath steady, every muscle relaxed but alert. The ceremony began with a short speech from the regional ranger captain, talking about conservation, community, and the strange, extraordinary wolf who had forced the state to rewrite 3 permitting policies in 1 year. But the crowd wasn't focused on policy. They watched Cole and Rook. Cole shifted on his boots, uncomfortable with the attention, but grounded by the warm weight of Rook's presence. The wolf stayed close, brushing Cole's leg every few seconds the way he did when he sensed the old nerves creeping back. After the ribbon was cut and applause echoed against the tree line, a young reporter stepped forward from the press line. She hesitated, then lifted her microphone. "Mr. Mercer, why did you keep a wolf with you through everything?" Cole froze for a heartbeat. He wasn't expecting the question to come so directly. Cameras pointed at him from 3 angles. The crowd hushed. Even the wind seemed to still. Rook looked up at him, steady and waiting. Cole set a hand on the wolf's head. The fur was thick, coarse, familiar. Rook leaned into the touch, slow and sure. Cole's voice came out quiet but carried through the clearing. "He didn't just save my life. He saved the man I thought I'd lost." A few people exhaled. Someone wiped at their eyes. The reporter herself lowered her mic as if needing a second to compose. Cole straightened, meeting the main camera with a clarity he hadn't felt in years. "What's your story with a loyal pet?" The question hung in the air, resonating across the clearing, across the watching crowd, across every viewer who would eventually see the clip online. It wasn't a challenge. It wasn't an appeal. It was an invitation. A veteran in the back nodded slowly, like he'd heard his own unspoken truth echoed back at him. A teenager standing beside her father reached down to scratch the ears of their old family dog. Even the rangers seemed moved, their hardened faces softening. Then a breeze swept down from the ridgeline, carrying the scent of thawing pine and snowmelt. Rook turned his head toward the forest, posture shifting, watching, listening. Somewhere in the far distance, a faint howl drifted across the valley. The crowd stilled. Cameras rotated instinctively. Cole felt Rook's muscles tighten with the instinct of something ancient and wild. This was the moment everyone, including Cole, had prepared for. The call of the wild, the reminder that wolves choose but they don't belong to anyone. Not truly. Rook took one slow step forward. Then another. Cole's chest constricted. He didn't move or speak. He had promised himself he would never hold Rook back from the world that shaped him. But after a few paces, Rook stopped. He breathed in the valley air, tasting it, listening, feeling the forest call him home. Then he looked back. Not a glance, a decision. Rook walked back to Cole, circling once before sitting at his side, solid and immovable. He leaned his massive head against Cole's hip, choosing, not out of fear, not out of dependency, but out of loyalty deeper than instinct. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Even the rangers exchanged looks of disbelief. Cole didn't say a word. He simply rested his hand on Rook's shoulders, a man anchored by a creature the world once called terrifying. And maybe it was terrifying. The size, the power, the mystery of what Rook truly was. But standing there, framed by mountains and morning light, the wolf wasn't a threat. He was a testament, a reminder that broken things could find each other. That healing sometimes arrived on 4 legs. That loyalty wasn't something you demanded, it was something you earned. As the event wrapped up and people drifted away, Cole and Rook remained by the tree line. The forest whispered around them, the breeze carrying another distant howl. Rook listened, tail flicking once. But he stayed. The world out there was calling. Yet he chose the man who had carried him through snow, through fear, through a world that didn't understand either of them. Cole knelt beside him, forehead resting briefly against Rook's. "We're all right, buddy." Rook exhaled, deep and calm. Before they left the clearing, the main camera operator approached tentatively. "This'll inspire a lot of people," he said quietly. "A whole lot." Cole managed a rare smile. "That's the hope." The final shot captured them walking towards the trailhead, man and wolf moving as one. A silhouette of 2 survivors, 2 brothers forged not by blood, but by the moment a dying pup met a broken man in a storm. Neither belonged to the world they were born into, but both had found a place in each other. And as the screen faded, Cole's question lingered, not as an end, but as a beginning. What's your story with a loyal pet? Thank you for watching. If Rook's journey touched you, consider supporting German Shepherd content so more stories like his can reach the people who need them most.